Marcus Chen had been walking the perimeter of research, Station Kepler 442b for 3 hours when he saw the smoke rising from the eastern canyon. Black smoke against the pale orange sky meant trouble. On this frozen world at the edge of human space, trouble usually meant death. He adjusted his thermal suit and checked his oxygen levels. 43% remaining. Enough for maybe 6 hours if he was careful. The smart thing would be to call it in and wait for the rescue team. But Marcus had learned long ago that sometimes smart wasn't the same as right. The canyon was deeper than it looked from the rim. His boots crunched through ice as he descended, following the smoke trail. The air was so cold it made his lungs ache even through the suit's heating system. This planet had been human habitable once before its star began dying. Now it was just another dead rock with a research station and a few hardy souls studying stellar decay. The wreckage was spread across 100 meters of canyon floor. Metal twisted into impossible shapes, some pieces still glowing red-hot from the crash. Marcus recognized the hull configuration immediately. Zalari design. One of their deep space exploration vessels, though much smaller than the massive ships he'd seen in the war documentaries. The Zalari had been humanity's first contact with intelligent alien life 15 years ago. The meeting hadn't gone well. A misunderstanding about territorial boundaries had led to a brief but brutal conflict. Both species had pulled back afterward, maintaining an uneasy peace through a buffer zone of empty space. What was a Zalari ship doing this deep in human territory? Movement near the largest piece of wreckage caught his eye. Marcus approached carefully, one hand on his emergency beacon. The Zalari were larger than humans, with 4 arms and skin that changed color based on emotion and temperature. During the war, that skin had usually been the deep red of aggression. This one was pale blue, almost white. The color of cold. Or death. She was pinned under a section of hull plating, her lower body completely trapped. 2 of her 4 arms moved weakly, trying to push away debris that was far too heavy. Marcus could see the rhythm of her breathing in the rise and fall of her chest. Barely alive. Her large, dark eyes fixed on him as he approached. For a moment, neither of them moved. The last time a human and a Zalari had been this close, someone had died. Marcus remembered the footage from the war, the burned colonies, the ships torn apart in the void between stars, but this wasn't a warrior. This was someone dying alone on a frozen planet, just like he would be if his own ship had crashed. Marcus knelt beside her, keeping his movements slow and unthreatening. The Zalari woman's skin shifted to a deeper blue, and she made a sound that might have been words in her own language. Her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Easy," Marcus said, knowing she probably couldn't understand him. "I'm here to help." He examined the wreckage, pinning her down. The hull section was too heavy for him to lift alone, even with the planet's lower gravity. But he could see spaces underneath where he might be able to dig her out. The bigger problem was time. Both of them were losing heat fast, and her suit looked damaged. Marcus pulled off his thermal cloak and spread it over both of them. The Zalari's eyes widened in surprise. Her skin shifted to a warmer shade of blue, with hints of yellow around the edges. In the war footage, yellow had meant confusion or curiosity. He started digging with his hands, scooping away ice and small debris from around her trapped body. The work warmed him up, but he could feel his suit's heating system working harder to compensate for the shared cloak. His oxygen was dropping faster too. The Zalari watched him work, occasionally pointing with one of her free arms to indicate where he should dig next. She was smart. She could see angles and spaces that he missed. After an hour, he had cleared enough debris to see that her legs weren't crushed, just trapped, but she was getting weaker. The blue of her skin was fading to an unhealthy gray. Marcus checked his suit readings. 20% oxygen left. His heating system was struggling. The smart thing would be to go back for help. But they both knew she wouldn't survive that long. Marcus made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed during the war. He started removing parts of his own suit to keep her warm. First his outer thermal layer, then his backup heating cells. He wrapped them around her torso where her own suit was damaged. The cold hit him immediately. On this planet, exposure meant death in minutes without proper protection. but the Zilari's skin brightened slightly, yellow and orange patterns mixing with the blue. She was trying to say something, her melodic voice more urgent now. "It's okay," Marcus said through chattering teeth. "Someone will come looking for me eventually." He kept digging, even as the feeling left his fingers. The ice cut through his inner suit gloves, and he could see his breath fogging inside his helmet. But he was making progress. Another hour, and he might have her free. The Zilari grabbed his wrist with one of her hands. Her grip was surprisingly gentle for someone so much larger. She pointed to herself, then to him, then made a gesture he didn't understand. Her skin was cycling through colors now, blue, yellow, orange, and something that might have been green. Marcus wished he knew what she was trying to tell him. During the war, the military had developed basic translation protocols, but he'd never learned them. He was just a maintenance tech who happened to be outside when a ship fell out of the sky. She let go of his wrist and began touching parts of her own body in what seemed like a deliberate pattern. First her chest, then her forehead, then her hands. She repeated the sequence 3 times, looking directly into his eyes. Understanding hit him like a shock. She was telling him her name, or at least what she was. The chest touch might mean heart or life. The forehead could be mind or spirit. The hands were action or work, life, mind, work, or maybe something completely different. Marcus touched his own chest, then pointed to himself. "Marcus," he said clearly. The Zilari's skin brightened with warm colors. She repeated his gesture, touching her own chest. Then she made the 3-part pattern again, but slower this time. The sounds that came with it were musical, like a song made of wind and water. "Vela," Marcus said. Trying to approximate what he'd heard, she nodded, or made the Zilari equivalent, which was a quick tilt to both sides. Her skin showed approval in waves of yellow-green. The introductions gave Marcus new energy. He went back to digging, and Vela helped as much as she could, pointing out loose stones and weak spots in the debris. They worked together in the strange intimacy of shared survival, 2 former enemies united by nothing more complicated than the human need to help and the universal desire to live. Marcus's suit was failing. His oxygen was down to 8%, and he could no longer feel his hands or feet. But Vela was almost free. Just a little more digging around her left side, and she could pull herself out. As he worked, Vela began to make new sounds. Not words, but something else, a low, rhythmic humming that seemed to resonate in his bones. It was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. Music, he realized? She was singing to him. The melody was unlike anything human ears had ever heard, but Marcus found himself humming along anyway. The tune was simple enough to follow, and somehow it made the cold hurt less. Or maybe that was just hypothermia setting in. When he finally cleared the last of the debris, Vela pulled herself free with surprising grace. Her legs were bruised and bleeding, but they worked. She stood slowly, testing her weight, then turned to Marcus. He was sitting on the ground now, too weak to stand. His suit readings were all red warnings. 3% oxygen. Heating system offline. Core temperature dropping. Vela knelt beside him, her skin cycling through colors he'd never seen before. She was trying to tell him something important, but the translator protocols he didn't know might as well have been magic. All he could do was smile up at her and hope. She understood that he was glad she was alive. She reached out with all 4 arms and gathered him against her chest. Marcus tried to protest. She needed to save her own strength, get back to the ship, and call for rescue. But Vela was much stronger than a dying human. As she held him firmly against her warm body, her skin began to glow, not the color changes he'd seen before, but actual light, like she was generating heat from within. The warmth spread through his chilled body, and his suit readings began to stabilize. Somehow, she was sharing her own life energy with him. Marcus looked up into those large, dark eyes and saw something that transcended species boundaries. Gratitude, yes. But more than that, understanding, the recognition that in a universe full of cold, empty space and hostile worlds, the choice to help someone who couldn't help themselves was the only thing that made any of them better than the void. As Vela held him close and shared her warmth, Marcus realized that this moment would change everything. Not just for him, but for the careful balance of fear and mistrust that existed between their species. Because if a human could risk his life for a Zelari, and a Zelari could save a human with her own energy, then maybe the war had been the exception rather than the rule. Maybe there was hope for something better. The rescue team found them 3 hours later, still holding each other in the wreckage of the canyon. Marcus was unconscious but alive. Vela was weak but stable. And between them, in the space where two former enemies had, Marcus woke up in the medical bay with every part of his body aching like he'd been frozen solid and slowly thawed out, which he supposed wasn't far from the truth. The white walls and soft humming of life support systems told him he was back at the research station, alive somehow. "You're an idiot," said Dr. Sarah Kim from beside his bed. She was reading his medical charts with the kind of frown that meant he'd given her several new gray hairs. "Do you have any idea how close you came to dying out there?" "How's Vela?" Marcus asked, his voice coming out as a croak. Dr. Kim's expression softened slightly. "The Zelari? She's alive. Recovering in Isolation Bay 3? The brass doesn't know what to do with her yet." She paused, studying his face. "You really did it, didn't you? Saved one of them." Marcus tried to sit up, but his muscles felt like water. "She saved me too. That glowing thing she did, what was that?" "We're not sure. Something we've never seen before in any of the combat footage from the war. Her body temperature spiked to levels that should have killed her, but instead of burning out, she seemed to transfer heat directly to you through skin contact." Dr. Kim set down her tablet. "Marcus, what you did out there, it's going to change things. Command is already asking questions." Over the next 3 days, as Marcus regained his strength, those questions kept coming. First from Station Commander Roberts, then from a series of increasingly higher-ranking officers via video link. They all wanted to know the same things. Why had he helped an enemy combatant? What had been her intentions? Was this some kind of Zelari trick? Marcus gave them the same answers every time. She was dying. He couldn't just walk away. She wasn't an enemy, she was someone who needed help. The officials didn't seem to understand. To them, the Zelari were still the alien threat from the war footage, the ones who had burned human colonies and destroyed entire fleets. The idea that one might simply be a person in trouble didn't fit their worldview. On his 4th day in medical, Dr. Kim brought Marcus something unexpected. "She asked for you," she said, holding up a datapad showing what looked like Zelari text. "Well, she asked for something, and our translation program thinks it means warm human or possibly human who shares heat. Close enough." Marcus stared at the alien symbols. "You can talk to her?" "Basic communication only. The translation AI is getting better as it learns her dialect, but there are still huge gaps." Dr. Kim sat down on the edge of his bed. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. Command is planning to send her back to Zelari space as soon as she's stable. They think keeping her here is too dangerous. But her ship was destroyed. How did she even get here? That's what has everyone worried. Long-range sensors detected at least 3 more Zelari vessels on the edge of our space. They might be looking for her." Dr. Kim's expression was grim. "Command thinks this could be the start of something bigger. Another war." Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. After everything they'd shared in the canyon, the idea of Vela being caught up in another conflict was unbearable. "Can I see her?" Dr. Kim hesitated. "It's against regulations. She's technically a prisoner of war, even though we're not officially at war." "Sarah, please." 5 minutes. Something in his voice must have convinced her. 20 minutes later, Marcus was walking through the corridors of the research station on unsteady legs, following Dr. Kim toward the isolation bays. The station crew they passed stared at him with a mixture of respect and confusion. Word had spread about what he'd done, but people didn't know how to react. Isolation Bay 3 was a standard quarantine room, designed for studying potentially dangerous alien specimens. Through the reinforced window, Marcus could see Vela sitting on the floor in what looked like a meditation pose. Her skin was a calm blue-green. Cycling slowly through gentle patterns, she looked up when he approached the window, and her skin immediately shifted to warm yellows and oranges, the same colors she'd shown when she first saw him remove his thermal cloak to help her. Dr. Kim activated the translation system. "The audio delay is about 3 seconds, she said. "Try to speak slowly." Marcus pressed his hand against the glass. "Vela, can you understand me?" The delay seemed longer than 3 seconds. Then her melodic voice came through the speakers, transformed into flat electronic words. "Marcus, warm human, you happy. You saved my life out there," Marcus said. "That thing you did, the glowing ... Another delay. Life energy sharing. Dangerous for Vela, but necessary for Marcus' survival. Even through the mechanical translation, he could hear something like sadness in her voice. "Vela sorry for ship crash in human space?" "Not intended," Marcus looked at Dr. Kim. "Ask her what she was doing out here." Dr. Kim spoke into the translation system, and after the delay, Vela's response came back. "Seeking. Looking for..." Translation uncertain. "Perhaps peacemakers or bridge builders among humans. Stories exist of human kindness beyond wartime." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. She hadn't been invading or spying. She'd been looking for proof that humans could be decent, and she'd found it in a frozen canyon where he'd chosen to help rather than abandon her. "Tell her she found what she was looking for," Marcus said quietly, but Vela was already responding to something else she'd heard in his tone. Her skin shifted to deeper, richer colors, blues mixed with purples and golds that seemed to shimmer even in the artificial light. "Vela hopes," came the translated response. "But human leaders may not understand. Zellara leaders also may not understand. War thinking still strong on both sides." Dr. Kim frowned at her tablet. "Marcus, I'm getting multiple readings from her physiology that don't match anything in our databases. Her electromagnetic signatures are off the charts, and her neural activity is ... strange." Marcus wasn't paying attention to the medical readings. He was watching Vela's eyes, those large, expressive eyes that had looked into his as she saved his life. "What do you mean, her neural activity?" "It's like she's connected to something external. There are patterns that suggest active communication, but with what?" Dr. Kim adjusted the translation system. "Vela, are you talking to someone else right now?" The delay was longer this time, and when it came, Vela's response sounded hesitant. "Vela speaks with ship sisters. They worry. They search." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. "The other ships?" "She's in contact with them. How is that possible?" Dr. Kim demanded. Vela seemed to understand their alarm. Her skin shifted to calming blues and she spoke rapidly. The translation struggled to keep up. "No danger intention. Ship sisters only want Vela safe return. Vela explains to them about Marcus' kindness, about possible friendship path between species. What does that mean?" Marcus asked. This time Vela stood up and approached the window. She pressed all 4 of her hands against the glass, matching Marcus's position on the other side. When she spoke, her voice was softer, more careful. "Vela's ship sisters experienced war pain. They lost family bonds, lost home places. They fear humans." The translation paused as she continued. "But Vela tells them, one human chose life preservation over species fear. One human shared vital warmth with dying Zelari. Perhaps more humans exist with similar heart nature." Dr. Kim was typing rapidly on her tablet. "Marcus, I need to report this. Command needs to know about the communication with the other ships." But Marcus was focused on something else. "Vela, what will happen when you go back to your people? What will you tell them?" Her skin brightened again, cycling through what Marcus was beginning to recognize as hope. "Vela will speak truth words. We'll tell of Marcus' choice in Canyon Place. We'll tell of warmth sharing and life preservation." She paused, her large eyes never leaving his face. "We'll tell ship sisters that some humans choose compassion over conquest, and if they don't believe you?" The colors on Vela's skin grew darker, more complex. "Then warpath continues. Fear grows stronger. Bridge building becomes impossible." She was quiet for a moment. But if they believe, if Zalari leaders hear Vela's truth words, maybe different future becomes possible. Dr. Kim looked up from her tablet. Marcus, command is on their way. They want to question her about the other ship's positions and intentions. Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised him. During the war, interrogation of captured Zalari had been brutal. The aliens' ability to change skin color had been seen as an attempt at deception, and their musical language had been dismissed as psychological warfare. He couldn't let that happen to Vela. Sarah, you have to help me. They're going to treat her like an enemy spy. She is communicating with potentially hostile vessels in our space, Dr. Kim pointed out. She's talking to her family. Marcus pressed both hands against the window now. Vela, listen to me. The human leaders are coming. They're scared of you, of your ship sisters. They might try to hurt you. Vela's skin shifted to alarmed reds and oranges. Through the translation system, her voice became urgent. Vela understands human fear. But ship sisters will not leave without Vela if humans attack. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Marcus could see the scenario playing out, frightened human commanders. Zalari ships that wouldn't retreat without their crew member, and the spark that could ignite another war. There has to be another way, Marcus said. He turned to Dr. Kim. How long before command gets here? 20 minutes, maybe less. Marcus looked. The command center of Research Station Kepler 442b had never seen so much activity. Officers Marcus had never met before filled the space, their faces grim as they studied tactical displays showing 3 Zalari vessels approaching at sublight speed. Commander Roberts stood at the center of it all, fielding calls from Fleet Command. While trying to coordinate the station's minimal defenses, Marcus wasn't supposed to be there. He was still recovering from exposure and had no official role in the crisis. But when he'd asked to speak with the commander about Vela, he'd been hustled into the room by security forces who didn't know what else to do with him. Sir, Marcus said, approaching Commander Roberts during a brief break in communications. The Zalari ships aren't here to attack. They're here for peaceful contact. Roberts looked at him with the kind of expression reserved for people who'd taken too much cold damage. Son, I know you think you understand these aliens because of what happened in the canyon, but this is a military situation now. Sir, with respect, Vela told me they're coming to talk. They want to learn about humans who choose compassion over conflict. Admiral Hendricks, who had arrived via emergency transport an hour earlier, overheard the conversation. Mr. Chun, isn't it? The maintenance technician who decided to play diplomat with the enemy? Marcus straightened. I saved someone who was dying, sir. That's all. And now 3 warships are bearing down on our position because of your humanitarian gesture. Hendricks pulled up a tactical display. These aren't exploration vessels, son. These are the same class of ships that took out the Hercules station during the war. The display showed sleek, curved vessels that looked nothing like the crashed ship in the canyon. These were larger, more heavily armed, and definitely military in design. Marcus felt a cold knot of doubt in his stomach. Had Vela been lying to him? Was this all some elaborate Zalari deception? Sir, Dr. Kim's voice came through the communications system. The prisoner is requesting to speak with you. She says it's urgent. Hendricks waved dismissively. I'm not interested in anything the alien has to say. Actually, sir, Dr. Kim continued, she specifically asked for Admiral Hendricks by name. She knows you're here. The command center fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the Admiral, whose face had gone pale. That's impossible. How could she know my name? Marcus realized what was happening. She's connected to the ships. She's been sharing information with them this whole time. He looked at Admiral Hendricks. Sir, if they know who you are, they know about the war. They know what happened at Hercules Station. Hendricks was quiet for a long moment. Patch me through to the isolation bay. Dr. Kim's voice came back moments later. Audio connection established, sir. This is Admiral Hendricks, he said into his headset. You wanted to speak with me? The translation delay seemed longer than usual. When Vela's mechanized voice finally came through the speakers, it carried a weight that made everyone in the command center stop what they were doing. Admiral Marcus Hendricks, commander of Destroyer Group 7 during the wartime. Lost ship Intrepid at Hercules Station battle. Lost crew family of 800 humans. Hendricks' hands shook as he gripped the communications console. The loss of the Intrepid had been his greatest failure, the reason he'd been reassigned to rear-line duties after the war. How could the Zelari possibly know those details? Ship sister Kethera was present at Hercules Station, Vela continued. She commands vessel approaching your station now. She carries memory pain of that battle, same as Admiral Hendricks carries memory pain. Marcus watched the Admiral's face cycle through shock, anger, and something that might have been grief. Kethera, Hendricks whispered. She was there. Kethera lost Nest family at Hercules. Lost ship sisters. Lost belief that peace could exist between species. The translation paused. But Vela shares new memory with Kethera. Memory of human Marcus who chose life preservation over species fear. Kethera comes to learn if more humans exist with similar heart nature. The tactical displays showed the Zelari ships slowing as they approached the outer sensor perimeter. They weren't making any aggressive moves, but their weapon systems were clearly visible and powered. This could still be a trap, Admiral Hendricks said. But his voice lacked conviction. Marcus stepped forward. Sir, let me talk to them. Let me show them that what happened in the canyon wasn't unique. That humans can choose peace. Absolutely not. You're a civilian with no diplomatic training. I'm the reason they're here, Marcus insisted. And I might be the only chance we have to prevent another war. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring again. The tactical officer called out in alarm. Sir, we're receiving a massive energy surge from the lead Zelari vessel. Unknown configuration. On the main screen, one of the approaching ships began to glow with the same light Marcus had seen from Vela in the canyon. But this was amplified 1,000-fold, turning the entire vessel into a beacon visible across space. It's not a weapon, Marcus said suddenly. It's communication. They're trying to share something with us. Admiral Hendricks looked skeptical. How could you possibly know that? Because Vela did the same thing when she saved my life. That's how they communicate emotions and memories. They're trying to show us something. The glow from the Zelari ship intensified, and suddenly every screen in the command center flickered. Images began appearing, not tactical data or sensor readings, but something else entirely. Memories. Marcus saw the canyon where he'd found Vela, but from her perspective. He watched himself approaching through the wreckage, saw his own face as he made the decision to help rather than flee. He felt the shock and wonder she'd experienced when he'd given her his thermal cloak, the gratitude when he'd shared his suit's heating elements, but there was more. Other memories from other minds. He saw the Battle of Hercules Station from the Zelari side, ships burning in the void, crews dying in agony, families torn apart by the violence. The pain was overwhelming, but it was followed by something else, hope, the possibility that despite all the death and destruction, peace might still be achievable. The images faded, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Dear God, whispered Admiral Hendricks, they're not here for revenge. They're here because they want to believe that humans can be better than we were during the war. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks that he hadn't realized were falling. Sir, we have to let them land. We have to try. Hendricks nodded slowly, then activated the communication system. Zelari vessels, this is Admiral Hendricks. You are cleared to enter our space for peaceful negotiations. The response came not through the translation system, but as more images shared directly to their screens, gratitude, relief, and something that might have been joy. Marcus was about to ask permission to return to Vela when Dr. Kim's urgent voice cut through the celebration. Admiral, sir, I'm reading a massive spike in the prisoner's life signs. Something's wrong. Marcus ran from the command center without waiting for permission. His legs were still weak from exposure, but fear gave him strength. He reached the isolation bay to find Dr. Kim, frantically checking readouts while Vela convulsed on the floor inside the containment room. "What's happening to her?" Marcus demanded. "I don't know. Her electromagnetic field is fluctuating wildly, and her neural activity is off the charts." Dr. Kim's hands flew over her controls. "It's like she's overloading." Through the window, Marcus could see Vela's skin cycling through violent patterns of color, reds and blacks and sickly yellows. She was trying to speak, but the words came out as agonized sounds that the translation system couldn't parse. "Open the door," Marcus said. "I can't." "Quarantine protocols." Marcus grabbed the manual release and yanked it. Alarms blared as the containment field dropped, but he ignored them. He rushed to Vela's side and knelt beside her writhing form. "What's wrong?" "What can I do?" With tremendous effort, Vela managed to focus on his face. When she spoke, her words came out in broken fragments that the translation system could barely handle. "Connection. Ship-sisters ... Too much energy ... Sharing memories across space. Burning out Vela's mind." Marcus realized what was happening. She'd been the conduit for the shared memory experience, channeling communications between her ship sisters and the human command center. The effort was killing her. "Stop," Marcus said urgently. "Tell them to stop the connection." "Cannot stop? Must maintain bridge between species. Must show humans that Zalari seek peace. If connection breaks now, ship sisters will think humans attacked Vela, will think peace attempt failed." Her skin was growing pale, the colors fading. "War will begin again." Dr. Kim burst into the room behind Marcus. "Her neural pathways are burning out. She can't maintain this level of psychic activity." Marcus looked down at Vela, whose large eyes were growing dim. She was dying to keep the peace talks alive, sacrificing herself to prevent another war. Just like she'd shared her life energy to keep him alive in the canyon. "There has to be another way," Marcus said desperately. Vela reached up with one trembling hand and touched his face. "Marcus, warm human, you showed Vela that humans choose compassion. Now Vela chooses sacrifice for peace possibility." Her voice was growing weaker. "Ship sisters will understand. Will know that some humans worthy of trust." "No," Marcus grabbed her hand, feeling the energy crackling.